Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Touro's Graduate School of Business. Salute to women entrepreneurs. We have an incredible evening for you, I promise you that. But first, let me introduce you to our fearless leader, the Dean of the Graduate School of Business, Miss Mary Loray.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this exciting and very informative event. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Dr. Mary Louise Leray, Dean of the Graduate School of Business at Touro College. Tonight, we are proud to join over 240 universities in more than 30 countries to celebrate women entrepreneurship. Women entrepreneurs have come a long way. According to Forbes, just between 2017 and 2018, women started an average of 1,821 new businesses per day. And in the US, and women make up about 40% of new entrepreneurs right now. Additionally, just to give you a little bit of perspective, the number of women-owned businesses increased nearly 3,000% since 1972. So it's clear that more women are turning to entrepreneurship than ever before. And this evening, I am honored that we have among us 7 dynamic entrepreneurial women, and I cannot wait to learn and hear from them. So now I will stop and just turn it over to Professor Zev Ash, who's GSB faculty member and Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, who is responsible for this evening event, so I thank him, and who will present our accomplished guest speakers for this evening. Zev, take it away.
Thank you. And in case there are any doubts, I've already signed up for the Witness Relocation Program. So you will not be able to find me after tonight. Okay, well, it's an exciting evening, especially because we have 2 Touro alumni graduates with us tonight. Toby, graduate from the Lenders College for Women, and Victoria is one of my ex-students in MBA and marketing, uh, and she's incredible. So we have 2 of our own tonight, but I want to start with our keynote speaker, Ms. Beth Golberg. And I am not going to memorize your bio, Beth, or anyone, so I'm just going to quickly read this as an intro. Ms. Goldberg joined the SBA after 30 years as an accomplished entrepreneur. As the daughter of trade magazine publishers, Beth is an executive leader with invaluable experience in both the private and government sector. Beth oversees the delivery and efficiency of the SBA's programs and services to 1.6 million small businesses, employing 5 million people with annual payrolls of $330 billion. This is the largest of all of SBA district offices around the country, and that's New York. I'm going to stick behind what I said, Beth, and let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Zev, and thank you, Mary, for inviting me here to be here. I'm always happy to celebrate entrepreneurs and especially women entrepreneurs. Zev asked me not to read my speech, everyone, so I'm going to go with it and tell you a little bit about myself and try to live up to the bio that Zev read. So yes, I am the district director of the New York office of the Small Business Administration. I share the stats about the office, about the 1.6 million small businesses with revenues of 100 million or less, employing 5 million people with a payroll of $330 billion and serving 14 million members of the public, to tell you that that's your immediate local market area. So for any of you thinking of being in business, we all share this common small business marketplace together, and who knows who you're seeing on the screen right now, who could be your next potential client or supplier. Those stats relate to Nassau and Suffolk. I'm in charge of the delivery of services to Nassau and Suffolk, the 5 counties in New York City, and the 7 lower counties of New York, going up to the lower Hudson Valley of Sullivan, Putnam, Ulster, and Dutchess. I'm entrusted on behalf of the taxpayers across this country to direct the delivery of services with regard to SBA's various lending programs, government contracting, and business growth programs to one of the most diverse and culturally rich communities in the United States. I also happen to lead the small business community in the finance capital of the world. So it's a very exciting job that I stepped back from the private sector into the public sector 5 years ago to take. So the question is, what do we really do? How does our work relate to entrepreneurship? And since this is National Women's Small Business Month, how do we support female entrepreneurs? I like to think about entrepreneurship as possibility. It's what drives you. Everyone who's an entrepreneur for whatever period of time in their journey knows that it becomes part of your life and it overtakes you with an excitement and a drive that really can't be met, in another job unless that job is a stepping stone towards your future goals. But not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. And so it's about possibilities. And at SBA, we try to empower you to turn your thoughts, your dreams, your plans, and your possibilities into action. So, we work every day on trying to make dreams into a reality for people. And those are all defined in a whole host of different ways that I'll touch upon for you in a few minutes. But I also want to caution that everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur, and it can be a costly mistake if you don't, go about it in the right way. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. So, I want to take away anyone's misperceptions that I'm a bureaucrat. I come from a family of business people. My grandparents were immigrants to this country. My grandfather was a furrier who during the Great Depression could not make a living as a furrier. I'm not quite sure, I never got to meet him, how educated he was, but he did develop a business plan. And while everyone didn't need fur coats, he thought everyone needed to eat. So he opened a fruit and vegetable store on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. And my grandparents ran that store. My grandmother was illiterate, but could add a column of numbers. And I'm actually, told that she ran the cashier desk for that business, being able to add a column of numbers correctly and keep a book somehow of who owed them money during the Depression. My parents were trade and magazine publishers in New York City. My mom became a bookkeeper at a printing company because of the Depression. Her parents told her that she could not go to work, could not continue school to become an accountant. So she got a job as a bookkeeper where she worked in Manhattan for the salary of $7 a week. And that included double car fare because she was in a two fare zone in Brooklyn. So that was 10 cents a day instead of a nickel. And my dad was studying to be a mathematics professor at Columbia University, but they didn't need them either during the Depression. And so he did his job was to work at the 92nd Street Y as he was putting himself through school. And they published a newsletter where they used the printing company where my mom was the bookkeeper. So my parents met and fell in love and got married and ultimately bought the printing company that they worked at. My dad became a salesman there. He never became a professor. And they bought the printing company. And that was before my brother was born. And my mom, before I was born, so there was the printing company, my brother, and then the publishing company, and then me. So I always say I was the last of 4 children. to grow up in the household. The publishing company was actually a client that owed my parents a lot of money, and the bankruptcy laws were much different in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And my father actually did a hostile takeover and did not put this gentleman into bankruptcy, but he took over their printing. He gave them money so that they could reestablish their lives, bought the publishing company at a discount, and my parents became printers and publishers, and they vertically integrated their companies for when the printing company didn't have enough business, they would publish their own magazines. And I always felt that my life revolved around these two other companies and my older brother for my schedule as a young child. And I often tell the story that I believe I said debit and credit first before I ever said mama and daddy. Of course, that was the conversation every night at the dinner table. My dad passed away when I was very young. And since we're celebrating women today, I have to say that my mom decided to fight for the companies after my father's death, and fought off all this debt collection and the IRS and a whole bunch of stuff. The laws were very different before HR 5050 was passed in 1988, and women were not allowed access to credit. You couldn't rent an apartment, you couldn't buy a car, you couldn't do anything unless either you had a male co-signer or your 18-year-old son could sign on your behalf. And my brother and I were not yet of that age. So I truly remember the stories of being a female business owner, you know, witnessing it as it affected my life. And the one other, she's my unsung hero, the one other story that I'll share about being a woman in that day, is I said she ran a unionized printing shop. The union decided after my father died that they didn't accept women. So even though there were 35 families that my mother was then supporting, she was not going to be entitled to any benefits or any representation by the union. So my mother did do a lockout of the union shortly after my father died. She went away. I was very young. She took a suitcase, told us she didn't know when she would be home, but she did, you know, do a lockout. I remember that she went with protection. It was organized by my uncle, and she came home several days later, and she did become the first woman ever admitted to the Bookbinders Union in New York City, so that her union printing shop could continue to survive. So I come from a long line of, you know, fierce entrepreneur women, and feel that, you know, as we often hear, that we're here today on the backs of women who had to fight for their survival during, you know, unfortunate times. For myself, I went to graduate school. So I went to Brooklyn College, and I ran a counseling center there, and then was advised by a mentor to go to social work school. And so I went to social work school thinking I would be more of an administrator in counseling programs. And having grown up in Brooklyn, I really didn't know much about Manhattan north of, you know, like the museum and the theater district. And in my own life, we had to move out of certain neighborhoods because of certain changes that were happening and safety issues. And my father passed away, and I had sort of a little bit of an upheaval in living in different neighborhoods in Brooklyn, all in Brooklyn. And then I go to Columbia, and I see this beautiful school in the middle of this abandonment and distress and homelessness, and, you know, and I get assigned to the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which was then part of the Commission on Human Rights, to be an intern. And I sort of learned, you know, all about disinvestment of the city, redlining, banks walking away from the city, insurance companies walking away from the city, politicians walking away from neighborhoods, all these things that, you know, you just say, gee, why is that building abandoned? And you realize that there are all these big societal issues that are going on, causing disabandonment, directing investment, pillaging money out of cities and building suburbs. And I realized that although I went there to do counseling, I could really do something and try to help the city that I loved. So I became an expert in economic development. And my career started in New York City economic development. I worked for the Brooklyn Borough President at the time, and I was charged with creating a commercial and industrial revitalization program for the borough. I'm probably considered by many one of the architects of New York City's economic development program, because the city had tons of money, federal money, sitting in Washington that they didn't know how to bring down to the cities. And I became part of that team and had studied that in Columbia. So I was like the whiz kid, because I just happened to have graduated graduate school at that point in my life, hoping that for all of you who are listening, that lucky lottery ticket happens for you too. And I became, very quickly, I became Director of Finance and Development for the Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation. And I became President eventually of the Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation. And I worked on all the master planning. You know, there were blueprints, downtown Brooklyn, Metro Tech, Barclays Center. They were just dreams. And I worked hand in hand with the borough president, the mayor of the city of New York, the governor, all their appointed officials. And, you know, we put in the foundation for what we see today happening in Brooklyn. And then, you know, I decided that I had a calling and that I had to leave and open my own business, because I came from this long line of female entrepreneurs, and everyone said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You're only successful now because you have the power of the borough president behind you. And I said, huh, he listens to me. What does that mean? I wasn't sure what that meant. I found out, but I wasn't sure what it meant. And I went on to have my own successful consulting firm in economic development in the city of New York. I worked on many, many interesting projects that I always said that the big boys would never touch or handle. My most famous project is the Pratt paper mill in Staten Island. I was the one sole consultant on the project by the company in New York, while they did site selection throughout the Northeast. And they are today, we acquired a 36-acre site in Staten Island. They are the only paper mill that functions inside a major urban city, or the largest urban city. You could look at the back of your pizza boxes or moving boxes from Home Depot. They are made with 100% recycled New York City waste. And they have gone on to become the world's largest privately held paper and recycling packaging company in the world. So I had a good run with them. I still do a little bit of work with them, and it really launched my career. But when I left government, I knew one day I would come back, and because there's so much more that I can do from my perch now at SBA than I could do ever just servicing clients one-on-one. But I attribute my success to three things. One, know more than anybody else in the room. Be practiced. Know when you go in, just like I am today. I have more notes and everything from my keynote speech than I probably ever would need. But one, always be the most informed person in the room. Two, focus. Become the expert. Be the subject matter expert. Be the person when somebody has a problem. I know I'm going to call Beth. And I have to tell you, during this pandemic, I heard from people I hadn't heard from in 30 years, asking me how I was and how could I help them. So people will remember you and know and look for you if they know that you are the expert in whatever it is. And three, enlist mentors. I would never be where I am today unless I had my cadre of people that helped me get to where I am. And I hope I help them in some way, almost, you know, I want to say every day, it's not every day, but there are those people that are a phone call away, and whenever you start the conversation again, it's just where you left off. They are so important to your career, to your business, to your thinking. You cannot just be alone and know everything. So, and then, am I doing okay, Zeb? Can I keep going? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was typing away to
Okay.
attendees and chats. I have a question for you, but I want to save it to the end. So maybe if it's okay, I want to jump to the next speaker and then
Okay.
circle back
So
to
can
you.
I just tell everyone a little bit what SBA does, and then
Sure.
you could jump? Okay.
Of course.
So there's that page, and then we're going to that page, and then there's that page. Oh, and that page too. So SBA is the lender of last resort, which means we help turn a maybe from a bank or a lending institution into a yes. There are lots of rules on our lending, you know, because we're government. We don't do anything direct. We provide, Congress gives us a credit line every year. In our meat and potatoes programs, not the pandemic, we get a credit line of $31 billion a year from Congress. $31 billion a year in, year out. Sometimes it goes up a little depending on what's happening in the economy. And we guarantee loans to private institutions to help make your dreams a reality. So when a bank says no to you, you can ask them, or a lender, for an SBA loan. We do this, we work with everyone from the smallest little micro lender, where we write them a check to relend our money. So think Axion, Bach Capital, Lower East Side Credit Union. We write them a check and they relend our money. Some of them will lend you as little as $50 or $500. And they help you, those micro lenders help you establish credit. They will do credit repair and establish credit. And, you know, our biggest partners are JP Morgan Chase, TD Bank, Citibank, and the PNC Bank, those players. So we work with everybody. And if they learn our rules, they will have access to our government-backed credit, which means when you don't have what it takes in your business plan to get that yes on your own, 20% of everyone will get a yes on their own. We will help that next tranche turn a bank from a no to a yes. So that's number one. Number two, as I said, people need help. The SBA has resource partners. We have SCORE, New York City.score.org or Long Island.score.org. They are counselors that are available to set up appointments and meet with you online like this. They have experts. You need to find the expert that you need to find, and they will help you have an idea. They'll help you formulate a business. We work with 12 universities in the district, 2 on Long Island, 8 in the city of New York, and 2 upstate New York. We have small business development centers. They have business advisors, which will really get into the guts of your business plan with you. And then they have access and buy this program that's run out of Albany. It is Madison Avenue Quality Market Research, and it's free. We support military families through our veterans programs, and we have women business centers that work exclusively with women. And it's all free, but you shouldn't really think of it as free. After the bank of mom and dad run out of money, it's Uncle Sam, it's taxpayer money that thinks that the economy, the small business economy, is so crucial that we use taxpayer money to support all these services. So with that, we can provide Zev with a resource sheet so that maybe you can circulate it to your participants and they could look at our resource guide. So the last thing I want to say to you is I wish in your lifetimes, to the people listening and to the young women that I see here looking at me right now, in your lifetime, that we don't have to differentiate ourselves as women entrepreneurs, that we will just all be entrepreneurs on a level playing field, doing great things in this great country of ours. So good luck to all of you. I'm sorry I ran over, Zev.
That's okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll stick around if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Beth. So we're going to jump right from recycling paper and into garbage. And so, Alina Guberman, very cool. Alina is an innovator and operations leader. She worked for various food and beverage consumer products and brands. She helped build out their supply chain to scale to multi-million-dollar productions. She now switched gears from making products to cleaning up the litter they leave behind. Her new initiative, Rubbish, is a new approach to trash, litter, and neighborhood problems. Rubbish uses technology to understand litter trends. The Rubbish iOS app maps litter, and then Rubbish can evaluate each block's footprint to identify better solutions for cleaner communities. Alina immigrated to the US from Russia, graduated from Fordham University, and currently lives in wonderful Oakland, California. Alina, take us through your journey, and you have about 1 minute. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, a minute. Hold on to cut everything out. Thank you. I'm excited to go after Beth because I'm also from Brooklyn. So it feels like I'm home. And I'm Russian, so Coney Island is even more like home. Thank you, Zev and everyone for having me. I'm very grateful to be on a stage with such incredible women. I know the rest of you very basically from LinkedIn, and some of you and I have connected, but Beth, thank you so much for sharing your background. I'm very honored to be here. I guess I want to start by saying that entrepreneurship is not linear and it is not easy. It's actually the complete opposite. And I never made an intentional decision to become an entrepreneur. I've always been curious and I always wanted to make an impact, but how, I guess it kind of evolved over the years. Like Zev said, my family and I immigrated when I was 8 from Russia to the States. And they came here from the Soviet Union so that I could have opportunity, safety, stability. I really consider them like the ultimate entrepreneurs because they moved to a country where they didn't know the language and they didn't know what lies ahead. And for me, uncertainty is a very big theme in entrepreneurship. Looking back in my life, there are a couple of moments where I definitely picked the abnormal, more entrepreneurial path. Zev talked a little bit about Rubbish, and I'll tell you how that came about. And it's very odd, very entrepreneurial. I had a company previously in consumer products and operations. It was a consulting company. And out of all of my friends from Bay Ridge, from Brooklyn, one particular friend and I both had consulting groups. And when you have a company of any kind, you don't know a lot. So you end up researching, Googling, and sometimes it gets a little boring. So because my friend had a consulting group, I asked him to just spend a weekend with me, share some knowledge. I'll make dinner. It'll be much better than sitting in front of a screen and just typing in taxes into Google. So over this weekend, we definitely shared different parts of our businesses, but then also took my dog on a walk. And while we were on the walk, my dog choked on a chicken bone that happened to be laying on the ground. And he was fine. He was very happy with the delicious treat. But my friend and I got very upset. And we started looking into litter. What do organizations do? What do cities do? Not really angry about it, but just what happens now to litter and how can we solve it? And that approach, I don't know if everyone would have had. What we did was from that moment onward, every single week we met for an hour and a half on the phone. And every week we had tasks, we had to-dos. We would research different cities, research practices. And we did that for a year. And over that year, we formed a business. We formed an idea that we thought would be different. And we thought it would have a solution to a current problem. And this was my personal chance to make a social impact. And I was like, let's certainty that comes with not knowing anything about this new company that we're going to build. And it seems a little crazy and very high risk. And I'll repeat that a couple of times because it seems unnecessary. And to me, entrepreneurship is really acknowledging this fear and uncertainty and doing it anyway. Like, that is not a blocker. For the most part, there's very little peace in entrepreneurship. Your mind is always racing with different thoughts. You can't fall asleep sometimes. You wake up with like notes that you write down, like a little crazy person. In the middle of the night, I'm frequently nervous. I'm frequently scared, but I wouldn't have it absolutely any other way. I think that the reward that comes from carving my own path for myself and potentially for other people in this world is exceptionally fulfilling. But to Beth's point, it's not for anyone. It's not for everyone. And as an entrepreneur, you're very much on your own a lot of the time. If you're lucky, you might have a co-founder or a team that shares your vision, and eventually people catch on. But an entrepreneur really believes in something that nobody else sees, especially not in the beginning. Eventually, you can share your vision and people will see. My favorite example is Thomas Edison, because besides the light bulb, he actually had over 1,000 patents. I think it's like 1,093 patents. And I think he said that I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work. And I really take that to heart because that's how I see failure. And that despite a lot of no's, despite what people call failure, it's not failure. It's just your path to success. You never know when that milestone will hit. So as an entrepreneur, I'm also a woman. So that's my lens. That's what I know. That changes a lot of things. It was different 20 years ago, and I hope it'll be different 20 years from now. But what I know is that men and women speak and think differently. Women tend to apologize more. Women tend to think in details, in colors. We tend to be more passive, and I'm generalizing, but this is there's been a lot of studies and a lot of research in the difference between how men and women are, especially in business. Currently, there are more female founders than ever before, but from a capital perspective, female founders only collected 2.8% of all the capital invested in the US ecosystem as of last year. So there's an opportunity here, but there are also challenges that we all face as female founders. My co-founder is a man, and our investors, our partners, they speak with him differently than I. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Together we make a good pair. Alone I would be fine. Alone he would be fine. But there are just differences, and they're there. Just this week we were on the phone with a national news outlet, and our PR coach was texting me specific items to say in the meeting and texting him entirely other things to say, which worked out great. But she did a great job about using both of our strengths to our advantage. And I think that's the key. We have to use our strengths. So I've learned what I need to leverage. I'm strategic. I can see the big picture, but also I love the details. I've learned to be a really good communicator. I want to make sure that what I say is very clear and people understand what I'm saying. I've learned to be more confident in my choices, getting better, but I definitely learned that. I try to connect and reach out to other female founders. I think that having a good support network as an entrepreneur is important in general, men or women, but female founders specifically have been an incredible resource for me in a time when maybe I do feel alone. I feel like no one understands this weird thought or this weird dream that I have, that I'm doing everything I can to make a reality. And this uncertainty is constant. Some days are better than others, but in general, it's uncomfortable. And every day is progress. A game changer for me has been feedback. I love feedback, especially constructive feedback. I want to do better. I want to read. I want to learn from other founders. I journal. In fact, to prepare for this panel, I've been writing just topic, entrepreneurship, 15 minutes a day. And this high risk and uncertainty has been a theme throughout my notes. As far as success, I think everyone defines success very differently. Personally, I don't see like a finish line that I have to run through that I'm gonna like bump past and I'm done. I don't see it like that. For me, it's made up of like tons of little victories that happen, sometimes many in a day, sometimes none in a day, sometimes none in a week. I'll share a couple of little successes. For me, my previous company, my consulting group, leaving that company is a success. It took me a very long time to make that decision, and it was really hard for me. I was very scared to kind of take that plunge. But at the end of the day, I really stood up for myself, for my values, for the work that I want to be doing, and for my future. And in the absence of that company, it gave light and space for a different idea to form. Another little success is that, or a big success, is that rubbish is changing people's behaviors about trash. That makes me really happy. I come from making products, and I still buy products. I love to-go snacks and candies and chocolates, coffee. But I love that we are changing the way that people work with litter and work with trash. And we're humans, we consume, that's okay. But I think that it's a success that we're doing that. I think it's a success that Rubbish is live in downtown San Francisco. Our platform is on 110 blocks in one of the greatest cities in the world. And it helps issues get resolved faster than ever before. I think that's a success. It's a success for Rubbish, but also for our cities. That makes me very excited. I think it's a success that the platform that is live currently in San Francisco stemmed out of a completely different idea that happened in February before COVID, where we worked with a conference in Silicon Valley to mitigate the litter footprint of 15,000 people that entered a small city for a conference. And we created something for that conference and then kind of huddled after the conference was over. And we're like, this worked out great. The planning commissioner said it was a clean conference. Maybe cities need this. And I think that's the ability for our team to shift and adjust and then sell another product that we didn't even have before into a city that is now being used to improve our streets is a success. I think people using our product is a little success every day. I think if I had to go back in time, the one thing I would change is to be more confident in my decisions. I wouldn't change very much, but I don't see a world where I'm not an entrepreneur, where I'm not disrupting a status quo and taking risks. I think overall, everyone's paths are different. And personally, I can choose to have a job, probably a steady paycheck, more normal existence, but that doesn't align with me and who I am. I love learning hands-on, and I love risk that comes with this uncertainty and the unknown. And my advice would be, if I had to give any advice, I would say to always be curious and always ask questions. There's never a bad question. And to surround yourself with the support network that allows you to continue thinking in curious ways and to not stop. There's no reason to stop ever being curious. So thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you. So we have 5 more amazing women. We're at 20 to 8. I know we're going to run a little bit longer, and I appreciate if you can stay. And I hope our attendees will stay for the question and answer period, which would be even more exciting. So I want to I'll stay on the Brooklyn theme and go to Toby, who is a powerhouse real estate developer. She's also a Touro Lenders of College for Women graduate. Toby is the founder of Heritage Equity Partners, a woman-owned real estate and development firm specializing in mixed-use development in New York metro region. In addition to the 2 million square feet of commercial and residential properties the firm and its partners already completed, Heritage currently has a number of major projects in various stages of development. Prior to founding Heritage, Ms. Moskowitz served as a managing director of private equity and venture capital investment activity at Camabees Capital Group, where she also developed a merchant banking practice. She holds an MBA from Bar Ilan University in Israel, a BA from Touro's Lenders College for Women, and she serves on the National Advisory Board of Springtime Enterprise, a nonprofit supporting women's access to capital markets. There's your money, Elena. There's an introduction for you. So, Toby, take it away. I think I want to guide the conversation so that we can get through everyone. Clearly an incredibly impressive background. What made you take the plunge and go lead a real estate firm, which is probably male dominated in New York City?
Yeah, and excited to be following two women, obviously very successful, and the Brooklyn thing. I'm actually sitting in Brooklyn as we speak in my office in Williamsburg. So I am the daughter of an immigrant. My father was born in a German DP camp. My grandfather came to this country and had no choice. I like to think that entrepreneurship, as we heard from the previous panelists, is in your genes. You grow up with it. And when my grandfather came here in 1953, he started one business, another business. He ended up in what we call the schmata business, where he used to buy literally rags and sell them, and that sort of evolved into buying from the U.S. government Army surplus. So even though I was one of 6 children, 4 girls, 2 boys, all of us, my sisters, most of them have businesses. We just saw a family that came to this country really with nothing and utilized internal resource to build, which I think goes to, like Elena's point, the characteristics of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I've always said, I have 10 rules, which I'm not going to scare you. I'm not going to go through those 10 rules right now, but I'll share one of them is, think like an immigrant. What is it, whether it's in your industry or it's in your community or it's in your business, an immigrant has nothing to lose. An immigrant finds internal resource to get through challenges. And I grew up like that. Elena certainly grew up like that. But if you're not an immigrant, you have to adopt that mindset. So why am I an entrepreneur? I call myself an entrepreneur, an accidental entrepreneur. I'm an accidental developer. I'm an accidental hotelier. I'm, have fallen into a lot of opportunity. But, in the beginning, and I just turned 43, so I sort of aged myself, and I tell you a little bit about, where I landed when I came into the workforce. I was a single mom with young children, and it drove me crazy, where it didn't matter how productive I was. It didn't matter, how many hours I put in. If I wasn't at my desk at 6 o'clock and at 9 o'clock, I was being looked at askance. And that's really hard when you have to make birthday parties, and sometimes kids need to see the doctor, and things were way more rigid when I first came into the workforce. So I was literally forced to go off on my own and create a schedule and a structure that, those of us entrepreneurs in this phone know that you end up working way more hours, and it's much harder when you, so to speak, control your schedule. But that was my original impetus. And, when I built my own company, I actually created an environment in which now we've all learned to experience, post-COVID, where pretty much every one of my employees makes their own schedule. But, I created a world for myself where the challenges and the elements of what it meant to be a mother, what it meant to be a woman, at a moment in the workforce when it wasn't cool to speak about it, I build that into my work environment. So I'll tell you the very quick story from Touro to date. I ended up in Israel in the late 90s when the tech industry was booming. I did my MBA at Bar Ilan. I went to Touro pre-med, wanted to go into the medical field, discovered pretty late in the game that I wasn't an area that I was going to be happy in, and I transitioned into biotech, venture capital, and then ultimately in the end of 2008, I had the worst timing or the best timing in the history of starting new businesses when I left a family office that I'd been working for and launched what was supposed to be an investment advisory business, except that within 2 months, the market crashed and nobody wanted to invest money in new deals. And instead, I started doing some restructuring work and ultimately ended up in real estate. And I think that as the one thought that I leave everybody with, and then look forward to hearing more about everybody else on the call. And I think that, we as women, we bring a lot of skills that are different than traditional male entrepreneurs in business. I grew up where in business, in a moment when we were sort of implicitly taught to make believe we weren't women, to hide those, to try to sort of fit in a male-dominated world. And I never really took that approach. Early in my career and early in my business, when I had to leave or I had to cut a meeting short because of my kids, I would, sort of announce it. And I learned to use feminine skills of intuition. I learned to utilize situations when I was underestimated, either because of my age or because of my gender to my advantage. And I think I, also look forward, as Beth pointed out, to a moment when it's irrelevant, what our gender is. But I think until that time, you got to use the advantages you're given. And I've seen that play out many times in my career. And I think that certainly we've heard from two amazing entrepreneurs, and we'll hear from more. You got to utilize what you have and make your perceived weaknesses into your strengths.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Toby, for breezing through it so we can make it to the rest of them. And everyone buckle your seats because Allison is next. And so reading her story is always incredibly touching. From a life plagued with abuse, addiction, and crime, including serving time in prison, Allison has transformed her life by refusing to allow her ex-offender status to define her future. Ms. Garrett went from a habitual offender to becoming an award-winning national speaker, a TEDx speaker, an author, a certified life coach, and an entrepreneur. Allison has inspired audiences with her riveting message of moving beyond your past and creating an extraordinary life. Allison, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And I think everyone has said it no better than I could say it, but it's just amazing to be among so many women, especially not knowing any of you from the start. So just hearing your stories is very inspiring as well. And of course, I have to start out by saying that I agree with everything that was already said. And I think I wrote it down that Toby had just said something. She was like, think like an immigrant. So now I'm like, okay, when you talk about using what you have, like you got to think like an inmate, right? My entrepreneurial journey started from after a period of incarceration. I wanted to live a life and not just work, but have meaningful work and a livable wage, which, by the way, is not always an easy thing to do with an ex-offender status. You kind of are expected to take whatever job is your way just because you need a job. And I didn't want that to be my path. So I started to think about what was it that I had. And I was geared in that direction because I learned that in my city, there were 218 professions that I could not participate in simply because of my record. I could not be a landscaping architect. How ridiculous is that? So I had to start to think of what's in my hand. What do I have? And growing up, I was always into beauty and fashion, and I learned how to do nails somewhere along the way. So I had this idea that I needed to do something where someone could not tell me no. I had to create something that I had the control, and people had a problem, and if I solved it, I'd get paid. So I started to realize that, okay, what I have a basket of nail supplies under my bathroom sink. And I called some of my friends to help me. So my friends and family, I'm asking them to get people together and I will come to their location and I will do their manicures. So get your friends, just a few, because at that point, I wanted to do something that there was nothing in my way. So that was easy. So it started out as just showing up and doing those things and earning enough, more than I would if I worked a minimum wage job. The obstacles that came in my way, I mean, of course, naturally, I didn't have all of the resources. I mean, even listening to Beth and having experience now with SBA and what's available, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know that that was anything that was available to me. And I had to create my way. I didn't have credit. I didn't have money in the bank. I didn't have a whole lot of support. And I just had an idea that seemed so ridiculous when I talked to people that, that I had this idea. You know what? I'm going to own a mobile spa. I want to show up. I want to provide on-site spa services for groups and for corporations. People were like, nobody's going to pay for that. You can go around the corner and get a manicure for $10. But I wanted to charge like $75 for a manicure and a pedicure. So I thought I was crazy. So even with thinking about that, it just reminds me of how you can't really, you have to really know what it is that you want in business, and don't let anyone talk you out of it. You can get guidance along the way. You can get people that will help and support you. But I made it a practice to never call someone that was going to shut me down right away. I put those people on the line that were going to inspire me and make me think further about what I was going to do, not just say, oh, well, that's a bad idea, or who's going to do that? They would say, okay, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? And that's what led me into the path of entrepreneurship. It wasn't so much accidental, but I was put in a position where I felt I had no choice. If I wanted to create a life for my family, I was a single mom at the time, and there were a lot of professions that I really just could not do.
Okay, wow. We're gonna stay on the nail beauty theme,
Yes.
and Victoria might be your biggest competitor. I don't know where you live, but Victoria is a graduate of Touro Graduate School of Business in MBA in marketing. She did get an A in my class, so I'm really proud of her because it's not that easy. Victoria recently obtained her MBA. She is the owner of Goddess Creations, whose mission is to provide beauty services and merchandise to inspire and help women feel confident and adored. She is a talent acquisition business partner with Grant Associates, helping New York City tackle unemployment by assisting the community to find skilled jobs within the industrial, transportation, and construction industry. So, Vic, because we are running short on time and I want to leave room for Q&A, can you jump? So you have a full-time job. Can you jump in and share with everyone why take on entrepreneurship? Okay, you're talented, you have a job. Why do it?
Well, entrepreneurship has always been a part of who I was and my culture and my family, because I come from a long line of Haitian women who've migrated to the States to New York City, as where they were working for business owners, but they were also sending money back home in order to fund their businesses and their small shops, whether they were selling spices and so on and so forth. So it's always been in my blood, to be a leader and to own my own business. So it wasn't until recently, with COVID-19, I really thought about how I was managing my business and decided to take it more seriously. So that was, reaching out to the Small Business Services of New York and making my business an LLC. And then, gradually each quarter of this year, escalating the different phases that I was bringing my business to. So I've always had it in my blood. It's always been in my family. And I feel like the women in my family have always shown me what it was to be an entrepreneur. So it was only natural to kind of follow in the footsteps and, be my own boss.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Hannah, are you ready? Patiently. Okay, so Hannah is a native of England, currently a Connecticut resident. She spent her entire career fulfilling her passion about working with children. After earning a degree in childhood education and development, she nannied in the private sector for over 10 years. And in 2011, she founded the Giggling Pig Art and Party Studio. The Giggling Pig's mission is to inspire children to use and develop their innate creativity, confidence, and compassion. As an author and an illustrator, Hannah has developed a brand that provides children and families a platform to unleash their natural talents. In 2017, Hannah won the Gold Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year and was also recognized as one of the top 40 under 40 female entrepreneurs in Connecticut. So from nanny to entrepreneur, tell us what made you do it and what was one crisis that happened in your journey and how did you handle it?
Okay. Hi, guys. It's great to be here and listen to your stories. It's very inspiring. So I came to America when I was 19. So I was pretty brave at a young age. I left England when I was 18. I went to live in Switzerland, and I think it was like Toby had 4 sisters and there's 4 girls and 2 boys. I had 4 boys and 2 girls. So having 4 big brothers, I literally had to leave the country if I wanted to date. So I decided to move to America. And I, took on the journey of taking care of children, which was my passion. But I realized that my other passion really was creating art, but I wasn't good enough to go to college or go to art school, or really I just didn't have the knowledge how to get into art school, and just had always been told that I wasn't really a good artist. So over the years, 10 years of nannying, I realized that I couldn't do just nannying, that I was really craving this creativity, and I really wanted to do it. And I kept driving past this little shop in my town, and I promised myself that after Christmas, if it was still there, I'd call the landlord up. And so I kind of winged it, and I called, and I got this great deal, and I opened up this shop, and I'd always drawn these little pictures of pigs, and I decided I'm just going to call it the Giggling Pig. I didn't even know what I was going to do. So I'm kind of like not, I don't have I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have a set path. I really kind of am really good at winging it. I just knew that this was my passion, and nothing was going to stop me. Also, I was a single mom. I was pregnant when I opened up my first shop. I was 31, and I already had a child who was 10. So I had 2 kids. I was single, and I lost my job. I was actually fired for being pregnant, which I knew was illegal. So I thought, it's either this, I either give this my all and I go all in, or I have to move back to England. And I really did not want to try dating around my brothers again. So I thought, I'm gonna go all in. So I really took the plunge, and I started to listen. I listened to every comment. I listened to everything that people were asking of me. If they said, can you do Mummy and Me classes? I would say yes, and I didn't even know what they were. And then I would Google them while I was on the phone with them, trying to figure out what the heck is a Mummy and Me class. And when people started calling for, birthday parties, I really just kind of grew the business as I went along. And then within 8 months, I had outgrown my location. And I was publishing my first children's book, my second children's book, but it was my first for the Giggling Pig. And then I started to think bigger. So I was always looking into the future. I was never just, right here and today. I was thinking about what could the Giggling Pig become? And then I started to create these lists. So which I think is a really helpful piece of advice to anyone in trying to take the entrepreneurship journey, is to keep lists. So keep a book and write down the things that you want in the future. So I didn't know how to create products at all. I didn't go to college for it. I hadn't studied it, but it didn't stop me. I didn't think, I shouldn't even put it on my vision board because I don't know how to create it. I put it on, and I kept thinking about it. And then when something would pop up online or something, I would click on it, do a little bit of reading. And then over the years, I actually have developed an entire line just from what I've created, plush, clothing, all kinds of merchandise for the Giggling Pig, along with an animation. And then the biggest hurdle that I had to go through was in 2016. In 2016, I opened my second store, and I had saved up all my money, gotten myself out of debt, opened up this second location, literally pulled up the old carpeting, painted the walls, did it all myself with the help of my dad. And 8 months in, I get a phone call 2 o'clock in the morning, your building's on fire. So I got in the car. I didn't have time to even cry. I looked on the camera on my phone and saw that there was just water pouring through the ceiling. So I knew that the fire trucks were there. I got there to see the entire building in flames. And I thought, I'm not gonna sit here and cry. What can I do? And I turned around, I looked across the street, literally, and there was a sign on the window saying for rent. So I walked across, called the number, left a message. 7 a.m. had keys to a new location. 24 hours later, was up and running. I didn't stop. And people said, take a break, take a couple of weeks, a couple of months off. It's the summer. And I thought, no, I've worked too hard. I can't just stop because of a fire. And I think that's something that really tells you that you're an entrepreneur, is that you're not going to be told when to stop. You're not going to stop, period. And I think that one of the reasons why I was able to keep going was because I had a clear idea of where I wanted to be in the future, and not owning the Giggling Pig was never an option. So where I want to be is really clear in my mind, and I wake up and I think about it, the things that I want to create. It's not about money ever. It's about making a difference. And I see kind of this pattern with everybody, and I love it. Is that people, you know, we want to make a difference in the world. We want to care about people, and it's really about changing the world and making it a little bit better, even if it's just one little corner. So I think it's really important that you love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, then you're not doing the right thing. So even at $20,000 in debt, when I first started the business, pregnant, alone, no family, it was a big enough reason for me to say, I've got nothing else to lose. I'm at the bottom. Either I start climbing or I just stay laying down, and there's just no way you can keep a girl from Yorkshire at the bottom. So that's my story.
All right, awesome. So Vanessa, we're coming right to you. Your business and your theme are very appropriate to our voting season, and it's healthcare. Vanessa is passionate about underserved, disadvantaged people with disabilities, minority, and about empowering women. She's led her team working with healthcare systems, private, state, and federal, to maximize reimbursement through innovative solutions, including physician advisory services. She's taught, mentored, and developed programs for initiatives including Women Entrepreneurs of New York City, Nationwide Emerging Leaders Program, Healthcare Entrepreneurship Community Challenge, JP Morgan Chase Foundation, Ascend, and Hofstra University and the SBA Women Business Center. Vanessa was awarded the 2020 U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency Healthcare Innovator of the Year, US SBA Women Business Champion of the Year, and Entrepreneur 360 Rank Business. So Vanessa, this is super appropriate. Tell us what your business is about and how does it serve the underserved, which is kind of the theme that we're all embracing.
Sure. So many things to talk about. So my business has three main lines. One is healthcare administration. The other is health and safety. And then the third is actually providing personal assistance services for federal employees with disabilities. And then outside of that, in my heart and heart, I really do a lot to try to help and empower and just share stories as with my fellow colleagues. I'll go through what I have quickly because I know we are running out of time. I'll tell you what made me go into business, like many of you. I was having my first child. And I didn't want to go from Queens into Manhattan. And no disrespect, Zev and the other guys on the call, but I was working in New York Presbyterian. There was a gentleman in my department. He was walking around saying how he had this business on the side and he was doing medical billing for doctors. And honestly, I looked at him, not being arrogant, but I said, he's not that smart. And I said to myself, if he could do it, I could do it. So there was a doctor leaving the hospital to start her own business. She was a woman. I said, let's have a meeting. I said, listen, you want patients to trust you. I need a doctor to trust me. You put in time learning how to be a doctor. I put in time learning how to be a biller. You're a woman. I'm a woman. Give me a chance. So she sat back. She looked at me. She said, good. She was my first client and she was my client for 18 years. The only reason why I lost her is because the hospital, after she left, wanted to buy her practice. And when she was renegotiating, I was sitting at the table. So that's how my business started. And then just organically, I started getting calls from doctors in Hawaii, Alaska, just all around who wanted me to do their work. So things were going good. But I would say when my business really pivoted and really turned is when I learned about programs like from the SBA that help women grow. And I'm going to tell you, for every woman on this call who's thinking about starting a business, this is what you need to do. In addition to all of the other great things, get certified. Getting certified gives you a ticket to the table. What do I mean? Real quickly, if you get certified with the state of New York or the city of New York or the MTA or the Port Authority, they have something called sole source. And what that means is they can opt to give you a contract for up to $500,000 with no competition. That's right. $500,000 with no competition because you show up and you're certified. With the SBA, not to take Beth's thunder, I love Beth and I work with the SBA with amazing programs. Quickly about Beth, one of the things that she did for New York with the Emerging Leaders Program, most states, the SBA will fund one program to help entrepreneurs. Beth, for at least 2 or 3 years, had 2 sites. So she is passionate. This is what I'll tell you about the SBA. If you get a certification called 8A and go to one of those resource partners or HubZone, the federal government can give you a contract, right? Sole source a contract up to $4 million. Now, it's not just for things like healthcare. It's lots of things. You'll be surprised, the personal services, there are nursing homes, there are hospitals that they need people to do their nails. There's places that need children. It's just amazing. So I would recommend really looking into those types of things because that's what really made a difference in our business. And you know what, Zev, one of the questions that you asked was like, what made us turn the corner and make success? And I got to say, kind of like Hannah and Toby, you know, when you have children, you know, your life revolves around your kids. So when I started my business, you know what, having a $5,000 or $10,000 contract, that was success because you know why? At 2:30 I needed to be at the school to pick up my kids and I needed to be on those trips. Now that my kids are older, shameless plug, my oldest daughter is in Touro right now doing her grad as a physician's assistant. So now I don't have to be home waiting for the kids. So I can push and grind with my business. So now I like getting those contracts for $500,000, or I like getting those contracts where I can sign where it goes up to $4 million. So that's what success looks like for me, and how it's just been an amazing journey, really growing my business, having my family, as well as now kind of doing even more with the business. And lastly, I'll say, there was a question, what advice would I give? There is a woman that I learned about, and I learned about her when I was teaching a class at Malloy. Her name is Madam C.J. Walker. And you know what? When I thought about her story and I thought about what obstacles have I had, my obstacles have been being a woman and being a brown woman, because sometimes the doors don't always open. They don't always open. But this is what I learned about Madam CJ Walker. You can Google her. She was one of the first Afro-American self-made millionaires. And guess what? She was born in Louisiana and she made $1.50 a day. $1.50. What I love about Madam CJ Walker, her hair was falling out. She created something for hair. She started selling it door to door. She started hiring people to sell it for her. She bought a factory, started making it. She got a school and started teaching it. And her home is like a landmark up on the Hudson River. So just amazing, just amazing. So in conclusion, kudos to all of the amazing women. And for those of you that are listening in and that didn't get a chance to speak, hopefully you've been just as inspired as we are. One last woman. Can I talk about one last woman for a half a second, Zev?
Of course.
Okay. Does anyone know who Sarah Blakely is?
Yes.
Zev, you're not supposed to know because she created Spanx. You're not supposed to know about Spanx.
I wear it. I know it.
You wear So here's the thing that I love about this woman. This woman went into Neiman Marcus with a product that never existed. Okay, Spanx did not exist. She went in there, she pitched to like this big group. She got them to buy Spanx, and you know what she's worth now? $1 billion. $1 billion from create, yeah, yeah, from creating something that doesn't exist. So as we learn from our other amazing entrepreneurs, think of things that don't exist, get your ticket, get certified from everyone that you can, and go out there and do it. Pleasure meeting all of you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to Victoria because I rudely cut her off before. Victoria, can you do it in a minute and share what you wanted to share?
Okay, I'll try to do it as fast as I can, but just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, I told you about, where the entrepreneurship came as far as in my family, but just to give you a little bit of background where Goddess Creation started. So I actually it was my aunt's 30th birthday party, and she was, having a big party, and I wanted to get my makeup done for the first time. And I went to the MAC store like normal women do, and it was my first time, and I got my makeup done, and I just loved how I felt after I got my makeup done. And I was like, wait, people get paid to do this for people every day? And I was like, I need to get in on this. So I literally spent the next couple of years just really building my makeup kit and buying various makeup products, and using my friends and my families as my clients. And it didn't start until like 5 years in. They were like, you need to start charging for this. You need to start building a clientele. You're doing it really, really well. And I was like, you sure? And I feel like when I started doing makeup on my family and everything, I was my worst enemy. I always doubted myself, and I wasn't, secure in the craft that I had. So I was always nervous about taking on clients that weren't family and that weren't friends. So I would definitely say, as advice to people who are looking to be an entrepreneur, believe in yourself, believe in your skill, practice practice in your craft. Because, just like Beth said, you want to be an expert in the field that you are in. And, doing makeup, it is a very saturated market, but I know one thing that I've learned as far as this year with COVID-19 is that you have to be able to pivot, and you have to be able to adapt to the changes and be able to, alter your business for the current times. So this is one of the reasons why we're going from not only being, a makeup, but also being merchandised and being able to sell different things to inspire women to feel beautiful. So that's one thing that I definitely love about, the industry that I'm in with makeup. So I definitely say, trust the process, be strategic, be intentional about everything that you do. And no change is good. It just means that you're growing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to jump right into question one that was sent earlier before the webinar from Shira. What would you suggest to a young college graduate who is interested and passionate about entrepreneurship, but fears the risk and instability of making that her full-time career? So whoever wants to take it, you raise your hand and I'll call on you so that we don't have everybody talking at the same time. Elena, go ahead.
Maybe the question, I would be curious to know what her passion is, right? So for me, every part of every today was based on something, right? Like after college, I took a job, it was a recession, and I took the first job that came up. And I ended up loving what I did, but not liking the products. So I took that learning and I switched. I changed the dial a little bit and was like, all right, I'll do the same thing, but at a different job. Then I changed the dial again. I said, I'll do the same thing, but for many companies. And I started my first one. Then I changed the dial again and was like, I like products, but now maybe I want to clean them up. So my advice would be pick something that you're passionate about. And even if your goal is entrepreneurship, that's great, but maybe follow the passion. If you're passionate about flowers, genuinely work in a florist and see where it goes, or talk to people that love flowers and see where it goes. But my recommendation or my advice would be follow that passion before saying I'm dropped, because then what do you do? That would be my advice.
So Toby, I'm going to get to you in a second, but I think what Shira was also asking, which is what I refer to in my classes, is the voices inside your head. When you have that urge to do something that you're passionate about, but everything in your head is saying, don't do it. You have a job. It's comfortable. It's stability. When you're done taming the voices inside your head, you go talk to your friends and family, and they will completely crash you. So I think that you were saying, I want to do it. I'm still afraid of the risk. Toby, yours.
Yeah, I think I would, My thought is, I always talk about, 10,000 hours. They talk about 10, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell speaks about that, what it takes to get that skill. So I think to Elena's point, you don't have to be an entrepreneur the day you graduate from college or graduate school. I think you need to have a vision where you want to go. Sometimes you can start it as your side hustle. I used to say, as a girl from Brooklyn, it used to be an insult to call somebody a hustler. Today, it's like a very cool world. Uber has it ads, what's your side hustle? So I think you need to combine skill and generally it's a series of jobs or opportunities. Figure out what your passion is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an all or nothing. You could do something as a side hustle. Grow and build your confidence and build your network and build a base, and then jump in. And for people that are unemployed, there's a lot of data that's come out about post 2008, and now in the same vein with what's going on with COVID, sometimes fate or life forces your hand, and then you don't have a choice. But if you do have a choice, you can be a great entrepreneur, but it doesn't have to be an all or nothing.
Great, thank you. I heard something about COVID that I thought was brilliant. And the gentleman said that what COVID has done, it has accelerated the arrival of the future. So what was about to happen in the next 5 to 10 years is already here today. And the Dean and I talked about this. We feel that of the many people who are unemployed today, many of them are not going to see their jobs back. They're going to be gone. And we should expect a tsunami of entrepreneurship at the end of COVID, probably next year around this time. Um, we think there will be a tsunami in entrepreneurship where people will just say, I'm tired of losing my job every time the economy goes south, and people will just go out and take the risk. So my recommendation, although I'm not on the panel, I would tell Shira or anybody else considering entrepreneurship, do not quit your job if you have one. Please don't do it. There are 24 hours in a day. You can work on your business and your passion when you get home. Stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. Do not quit your job. Seek out the mentors. When it begins to take shape, then you just take the leap. We talk about entrepreneurship as taking the leap, which is having the courage to do it. But what we teach at GSB is how do you stick the landing? It's not about just taking the leap. You got to stick the landing. And you've heard from everyone here that you stick the landing by seeking out mentors, by learning, by studying nonstop, but not being afraid to pivot when you have to. So, Toby, you already have a fan. She lives in Flatbush. You inspired her. She's a mother of three. She's eager to learn, and I think she wants to get into real estate. So, if you tell me later that it's okay, I will share her name with you, and you can maybe inspire her to what to do next. Um, Hannah, somebody asked what the giggling pig does. I could take it, but I'm going to let you take it because I know you.
Okay, so the Giggling Pig is a children's art studio, mainly children's art studios, but we also cater to adults and cater to all ages. We visit hospitals, assisted living homes. We teach about art, but we're actually telling a story, which I think is really important, is we're telling a story and we're teaching kids what compassion is, what friendship should look like. Then we're trying to, we're definitely succeeding in it, but we mirror the behaviors that we think, should be being taught. So the Giggling Pig is basically, we've got all these different characters that I created in the children's books, which talk about the compassion and friendship side of things. And they're all different. So they're not just like regular pigs and ducks and hedgehogs. They all have like a special thing about them that makes them stand out. And so they all come together in the books, and they show kids what friendship should look like. And so I'm not trying to show bad behaviors for kids to mirror. We do it a little bit different. So even though we're an art studio, we're teaching a lot of other things too. So you can check it out online too.
So I happen to know Hannah and her passion. She's amazing. And you know how everybody, as we grow up, they teach us how to draw and paint inside the square box and don't go out. Well, she just does the opposite, right? The kids have an innate talent, they have creativity. Let yourself go, gain the confidence you created something you can look at and be proud of. Learn to work with other kids. We should all learn from it. Vanessa, you started something big when you started to tell people they just get this thing done and you can get a contract for $500,000. So, um, can you go back to some of the opportunities that are out there that exist that will allow, and I think you were talking about being certified as a minority owned business as a woman, right? That
Yes.
certification.
Yeah. So there's several certifications through several agencies. So New York State has a certifying body where you can be certified as a minority and or a woman. New York City, uh, the Port Authority, the MTA, and the biggest on the federal side is the Small Business Administration. And depending on where your business is located, there's another certification called Hub Zone. And there's some requirements behind that where your principal offices and where your employees live. So these certifications, what we have found to really be a key to get you to the table, because a lot of these opportunities, even if there is what we call a large prime contractor. So let me think of an example. I'll give you Deloitte as an example. So Deloitte has a contract, and this is all public knowledge, you can look it up. They have a contract with the Department of Health. So the state of New York says, okay, Deloitte, we're going to give you this contract. However, you have to allocate 15% of that value to a woman and 15% to a minority. So if you're one or either and you have the skill set, you don't even have to be the primary contract holder for some of those. Same thing with the federal government. They'll say, okay, there's a certain percent for women, for economically disadvantaged women, for veteran owned, all of those classifications. So, as women, I think it's very important to take advantage of that. Outside of the government, there's another corporation called WeBank, the Women's Presidents Organization. You can also be certified as a woman with WeBank, and that allows you to work with corporations like a JP Morgan or like a CVS or like a AARP.
Thank you.
I could jump in a minute, Zev,
Go ahead.
just to follow up on Vanessa, which I didn't get to say. If there are two things that you can remember, the federal government is the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. They purchase $500 billion of services every year, from buttons to napkins to services at their bases for children, to artwork, to anything you can, and missiles included. And Vanessa's talking about the certification programs that we run. 123 billion with a B is reserved every year for small businesses. And there are in that pot veterans disabled, women-owned small businesses. The federal government reserves 5% of that, or $6 billion a year, just to contract with women. And the SBA's role nationally is to work with those contracting offices, and we grade the agencies every year on how they're meeting their small business goals. The second thing that I want to pitch to you, and everyone always tells me it's too complicated, it's too hard, is exporting. Exporting your services. Think of this, 95% of the world's purchasing power resides outside of the United States. If you can learn how to export your programs, I had a story to talk about from the Farmingdale SBDC about a woman who's in cosmetics for women of all complexions, and she started out with global selling online platform and selling online. Believe me, in my day, you needed an agent in every country. You needed a guy rowing the boat, across the ocean. You don't need that anymore. You can sell internationally. Only, we hear the stats about COVID, unfortunately, and how the US is inundated, has too much of it given our population and per capita. Think about it, only 5% of the world's population live inside the US. Your sales and your, to grow exponentially. SBA has programs to help you export. But think about that, government contracting and exporting your product, two markets to explore to help you grow. Thanks,
Thank
Zev.
you, Beth. So I think, first of all, I want to say thank you. We started with 60 participants. We only lost about 10. So thank you for everyone that stuck with us. I think if you have any entrepreneurship tendencies, you've just proven that you passed because you stayed around to learn, which is work smart, don't work hard. Learn from others, and you'll gain a lot in terms of wisdom and not spending a lot of money trying it and failing yourself. So I want to thank our attendees that stuck around. Again, special thank you for everyone. If it's okay with our panelists, we will send a follow-up email to everyone that attended the session today with your contact info, if it's okay. I know some people want to speak to Elena and Toby and Vanessa. And so if it's okay, I will share it with them. The webinar is recorded. It will be posted on the Graduate School of Business YouTube channel soon, within the next few days, as soon as we can get it up there. I have to say that I feel honored, and thank you for allowing me to be the MC of a panel full of women. But the good news is I grew up in a country named Israel where I've never, ever, most of the life that I've lived there, ever even thought about or heard about women other than being equal. And they were. And we had the first prime minister, her name was Golda Meir. You can look her up. She was amazing. You go to the army and you serve with women side by side. So for me, some of the revelations that you shared, I still scratch my head and I said, I can't believe we're in the 21st century. It's still there. But people like you are the ones that are creating the change and the momentum and teaching everyone that has heard something negative about discrimination, teaching them that's, as my friend Joe Biden says, that's malarkey. I still don't know what that is, but I think I know. So anyway, thank you again. This is recorded. It will be on YouTube. Dean Lorray, I'm going to leave you the last word because I need to shut up.
All right, Zev, thank you so much for having cultivated and inspired, right, for them to all these wonderful, wonderful women to speak here tonight. And of course, we're doing a lot of marketing, so all our participants were able to, right, come and actually hear, right, these wonderful women in their words of wisdom and just truly inspirational. I know I've learned a lot tonight. I want to thank you, Hannah, Beth, Elena, Vanessa, Allison, Victoria, and of course, Toby. Again, thanks to you, Zev, and thank you to all the participants. We hope to see you soon, okay?
And you will, when you least expect it. We have entrepreneurial programs.
Yes,
you're going to be invited back next time with plenty of time. So thank you for your patience. Good night, everyone. Thanks for sticking around.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.